Look, I've been obsessed with Dexter for years, and if you're watching this, you probably have been too. But here's the thing. The Dexter we fell in love with on Showtime isn't exactly the same guy from Jeff Lindsay's original novels. Not even close, actually. I remember picking up Darkly Dreaming Dexter after watching season 1. And honestly, I was shocked at how different they were. Michael C. Hall's Dexter and book Dexter might share a name and a hobby, but trust me, they're practically different characters. Today I'm breaking down all the wild differences between the Dexter books and TV show. And there are a ton of them. From characters who die in one version but live in another, to entire storylines that got completely changed or thrown out. So grab a beer and get comfortable. We're about to slice into what makes each version of America's favorite serial killer unique. Section 1. Character differences. Let's start with the big guy himself. Book Dexter is way more of a psychopath than TV Dexter, and I'm not exaggerating. In the books, he's constantly reminding us that he's just pretending to be human and has zero real emotions. His inner monologue is darkly hilarious, but genuinely disturbing. Like, check out this quote from the first book. "I'm not sure what I am, but I know I'm not human." Lindsay doesn't pull any punches. Book Dexter is a straight-up monster wearing a person suit. The dark passenger thing is totally different too. The show treats it as a metaphor for Dexter's urges, right? But in the books, especially by the third one, Lindsay goes full supernatural with it. He suggests the dark passenger is literally some kind of ancient demonic entity descended from a god called Moloch. I'm not kidding, it gets pretty weird. TV Dexter, though, he actually grows and changes. By season 4, he's genuinely caring about Rita. By the end, he's risking everything for Harrison. The show asks if a broken person can heal. The books basically say, nope, once a monster, always a monster. Deborah Morgan. Oh man, Deb's story is completely different between versions. In the books, where she's called Deborah, by the way, she finds out Dexter's secret at the end of the very first book. And get this, after freaking out initially, she basically comes to terms with it. She's like, well, at least you're only killing bad guys. She struggles with it throughout the series, but ultimately chooses her brother over her badge. Book Deb also has a son named Nicholas and a serious boyfriend named Kyle Chutsky. Neither of these characters even exist in the show. Jennifer Carpenter's Deb, though, she doesn't discover Dexter's secret until the season 6 finale when she walks in on him stabbing Travis Marshall. That scene where she just freezes in shock? Incredible acting. TV Deb never really accepts what Dexter does, even though she helps him cover it up. And the biggest difference? Book Deb survives. TV Deb gets shot, ends up brain dead, and Dexter drops her body in the ocean in that gut-wrenching finale scene. I still haven't recovered from that, honestly. Brian Moser, the ice truck killer. This one blew my mind when I first read the books. Remember the ice truck killer from season 1? In the show, Dexter kills him in the finale to protect Deb, but in the books, Brian escapes. He just disappears for a few books and then shows up again in Dexter is Delicious, trying to bond with his little brother. It's wild. He becomes this recurring character who pops in and out of Dexter's life, and he's even a major player in the final book. This one change completely alters both stories. TV Dexter only has memories and guilt about his brother. Book Dexter has an actual relationship with him. Can you imagine if Christian Camargo had stuck around for all 8 seasons? That would have been a totally different show. Rita Morgan? Poor Rita. She dies in both versions, but in completely different ways. In the books, she doesn't die until the very last novel, Dexter is Dead, when she's killed by a guy named Robert Chase who's out for revenge against Dexter. But TV fans will never forget that season 4 finale. Coming home to find Rita dead in the bathtub, killed by the Trinity Killer, with baby Harrison sitting in a pool of blood just like Dexter was. That scene haunted me for weeks. John Lithgow deserved every award for Trinity. The timing makes a huge difference too. TV Dexter has to deal with Rita's death for 4 more seasons, while Book Dexter only faces it at the very end. Other key characters. So many other characters are completely different between versions. Lagerta is called Migdia in the books, and she's way more of a jerk. She also dies in the first book. Killed by Brian, TV Lagerta sticks around until season 7 when Deb shoots her to protect Dexter. That scene in the shipping container? Intense. Dokes gets the most messed up treatment. TV Dokes dies in season 2, but book Dokes? He gets captured by this psycho called Doctor Danko, who surgically removes his feet, hands, and tongue. He survives as this mutilated mute guy who still suspects Dexter. Dark stuff. The creepiest difference might be Aster and Cody. On the show, they're just normal kids. In the books, they show signs of being little sociopaths, and Dexter starts teaching them a kid-friendly version of the code. Yeah, Lindsay went there. Oh, and Dexter has a daughter in the books. Instead of Harrison, Rita gives birth to a girl named Lily Ann. Weird to think about, right? Section 2, Plot Differences. First book, Chosh Season Divergence. Season 1 follows the first book pretty closely, but the endings set up totally different paths. In Darkly Dreaming Dexter, the final showdown ends with Dexter letting Brian escape and Deb finding out her brother's secret. Talk about a cliffhanger. The show flips this completely. Dexter kills Brian to protect Deb, who remains clueless about her brother's hobby. This one change ripples through everything that follows. Major storylines only in the show. After season 1, the show basically said thanks for the characters to the books and went its own way. Season 2's Bay Harbor Butcher investigation? Not in the books. Neither is Lila, who I personally found super annoying, but was definitely a game changer for the show. Season 3 gave us Miguel Prado, played by the amazing Jimmy Smits. Dexter trying to teach someone the code only for it to go horribly wrong? Totally original to the show. And then there's Season 4, The Trinity Killer. Many fans, myself included, think this was the show's peak. Arthur Mitchell is hands down the best villain in the series, and John Lithgow's performance was chilling. None of this exists in the books. The show also created Lumen Pierce, Hannah McKay, and Dr. Evelyn Vogel, all major characters with no book equivalents. The writers really took the ball and ran with it. Major storylines only in the books. The books have some wild plots that never made it to TV. Dearly Devoted Dexter features Dr. Danko, who surgically removes his victims' limbs and tongues to spell out words with what remains. This is the guy who dismembers Dokes. Even for Showtime, this was probably too gruesome. Dexter in the Dark goes full supernatural with a cult worshipping Moloch, the ancient entity supposedly behind the Dark Passenger. The show wisely kept things psychological instead. Dexter is delicious, has a literal cannibalistic cult, plus Brian's return, while Double Dexter introduces someone who witnesses Dexter killing and starts copying him. And again, there's that disturbing subplot about Dexter training Aster and Cody to channel their dark urges. The show definitely made the right call skipping that one. Section 3, Thematic Differences. The Nature of Evil. The books and show have completely different takes on what makes Dexter tick. Lindsay's novels eventually suggest the Dark Passenger is literally supernatural, like an actual demonic entity possessing people and making them kill. It's almost like a horror novel at points. The show keeps things firmly in psychological territory. Dexter kills because of childhood trauma, not because he's possessed by some ancient murder god. This makes the show feel more grounded, even with all the serial killer drama. Dexter's capacity for change. This is probably the biggest philosophical difference between the two versions. Book Dexter stays pretty much the same cold, calculating killer from start to finish. He occasionally gets confused by unfamiliar feelings, but he never really changes or grows. By the end of the series, he's still fundamentally detached from humanity. TV Dexter, though, his whole arc is about gradually becoming more human. From his growing attachment to Rita and the kids to his genuine love for Harrison, he's constantly evolving. By the New Blood finale, he makes the ultimate sacrifice for his son, something Book Dexter would never do. I've always found this difference fascinating. The books say a monster stays a monster. The show asks if redemption is possible. The Code of Harry. The famous code exists in both versions, but works differently. In the books, Dexter treats the code pretty casually, breaking it whenever it's convenient. It's just a practical guide, not some moral compass. Book Harry comes across as more manipulative too. He saw Dexter's darkness and basically weaponized it. The show turns the code into almost a religion for Dexter. Show Harry, played perfectly by James Remar, appears as a conscience-like figure throughout the series. Dexter's struggles with the code drive so much of the show's drama. Every time he breaks it, there are serious consequences. Tone and style. The books have this darkly comedic, sometimes absurdist vibe. Lindsay gives Dexter this sardonic, detached voice that finds humor in the most messed up situations. The later books especially get pretty over the top. The show plays things more straight. Sure, there's dark humor. Michael C. Hall's delivery of some lines is hilarious. But generally, it treats the subject matter seriously. The show aims for emotional realism in a way the books don't really care about. Section 4. Endings. Book ending. The book series wraps up with Dexter is Dead, where our anti-hero gets framed for murders he didn't commit. After a bunch of increasingly desperate events, including Rita's death, the final scenes show Dexter apparently dying when his boat explodes. Classic Lindsay, though, he leaves just enough wiggle room that Dexter might have somehow survived. Brian plays a big part in the final book, trying to help his brother escape, something that couldn't happen in the show since, Dexter killed him in season 1. Fan reactions were mixed. Some liked the dark ending. Others thought the final books weren't as good as the earlier ones. I tend to agree with the latter. The first couple of books are the strongest. Show endings. The show basically got 2 shots at an ending, and fans are divided on both. The original 2013 finale, Dexter fakes his death and exiles himself to become a lumberjack in Oregon. I remember watching it live and just sitting there thinking, that's it. That's how they end it. It was widely panned and for good reason. Then in 2021, New Blood gave us a do-over. This time, Dexter dies at the hands of his son Harrison after fully embracing his dark side again. It was definitely more definitive, but still pretty divisive among fans. I personally thought it was a more fitting end, but I get why some people hated it. The contrast is interesting. The books maintain Dexter's essential nature, while suggesting his lifestyle eventually catches up with him. The show, especially in New Blood, goes for a more moralistic ending, where Dexter finally faces judgment for all the lives he's taken. Conclusion. So there you have it. 2 completely different takes on Dexter Morgan. Same name, same basic premise, but almost everything else is different. Book Dexter lives in this stylized, occasionally supernatural world, where he remains a sociopath from start to finish. He's a monster pretending to be human, who occasionally glimpses something more, but never really changes. TV Dexter exists in a more grounded reality, where his journey is all about the possibility of change and redemption. His story asks whether someone broken by trauma can ever truly heal or find connection. I go back and forth on which version I prefer. The books have this darkly comic edge that's really entertaining, but the show has more emotional depth. Sometimes I'm in the mood for the unapologetically monstrous, literary Dexter. Other times I connect more with the TV Dexter struggle for humanity. What about you? Are you Team Book Dexter or Team TV Dexter? Drop a comment below. I'm genuinely curious which version people prefer. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the differences between Dexter's literary and television incarnations, hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty more videos planned exploring the darkest corners of your favorite characters and stories.